Hello friend, welcome back to Toyota Maintenance YouTube channel. I'm not sure if you will be able to see anything. I didn't dealt with those skylights yet. I didn't have time to bring anything to reach there this week. So I don't know if you will see anything, but if you do see something, it's a 98 Tacoma, two-wheel drive, new customer. It's a manual transmission. And it has whopping 245,000 miles on the odometer. She's also equipped with 4-cylinder 2RZFE. The reason the owner made appointment, he said, I have a power steering noise and I'm losing fluid. So I don't know if my pump is bad because it's making that noise, or if my steering rack is bad. So that's why it came. I say, you know what, you are a new customer, I will do some extra work. I will go through the whole truck on top of diagnosing that leak. And it might take just a few minutes to find it anyway. So for your money, I want to give you most, and I will inspect the whole truck. She's pretty good shape so far, what I saw, everything. It's perfect, engine runs beautifully, correct spark plugs, there's no problem with it. It's just that power steering noise, that whine when you turn the steering wheel. I removed one of those hubcaps, it's a base model, because the wheel bearings on top of it, he has no clue. The wheel bearings have so much play and needs to be adjusted. It rattles when I grab that wheel with both hands, right? To check, you grab it here and on the top. Here it will be for steering play. This is for the wheel bearing play. It completely rattles. It makes a huge noise, so there will be neat adjustment. That doesn't mean it needs to be replaced. I want to show you, obviously. I just had it in better position when it was lower. Okay, that's a lift, but why? Do you hear that? One more time. Now you hear that, right? There's too much play and it needs to be adjusted, so that's fine. This is that very old-fashioned system of arms and ball joints and so on. I will show you in just second when we finally will go to that power steering problem. And I know we came for that, but I love to show you around. I know you like it. You do like it, guys. Another item, he said, yeah, also the AC doesn't work. You know, it doesn't blow cold. And I had to, in past, remove the belt because it was all kind of getting frayed and going to fall apart. As you can imagine, when I grabbed it, compressor, the AC compressor, that entire pulley and clutch, it's completely seized. That will not move, and obviously that's the reason why he had to remove that belt, or it will rip into the pieces as the engine was rotating. So this is good for him. It doesn't have a serpentine belt which will run everything in the same time. He still can use the truck because the alternator has its own belt and power steering on the top has its own belt. So no problem. And he can keep cruising because it's that old-fashioned design and the belts were separate. It was 3 of them in total. Therefore he can keep going. Why that shredded in the pieces and it's locked up? It's an internal problem on that AC compressor. That has to be replaced. That has nothing to do even with the clutch. That thing is gone. Kaput. Now let's go finally to that power steering, fluid leakage, whine and so on. This thing leaks so much that I had to put a catching pan. And finally, my friend, here we are. Simple two-wheel drive system, as we discussed, and this is what you're looking at. This is that steering rack and pinion. Here it goes to the passenger side. Here are the clamps, some bolts and so on, and it goes to the driver's side. All these boots are kind of ripped and open, but I think this is because the maintenance. Somebody really presses the grease in it and then it's coming out. So far I didn't see any play in the upper ball joint, the lower ball joint, even this. No matter that it looks nasty, this outer tie rod has a zero play. However, there is play when I grab the wheel for a steering. There is a play in inner. Very little play is there. This side is perfectly tight. This wheel, when you grab it and try to test the steering play, there is zero. That actually confirms the leak is here. This is dripping the fluid. The dust boot finally got a hole right here. Hopefully you can see that, and it's just leaking out. Now, why is it leaking? Correct? Somebody might not know, so let's explain it. Well, there are internal parts, there are seals. There is that whole rack moving there and back, and there are seals around those parts. And they failed. So the pressure from the hydraulic system starts pushing out, and that could be causing also that noise, that power steering whine. The owner completely logically said, hey, I think my pump is done because it makes the whine, no matter how much fluid are poured into it. But not necessarily, my friend. Actually, those pumps are super great. I might have believed it or not. This older power steering pump, which is completely made of metal, that old design from these 90s on Tacomas and Forerunners, I don't think I ever replaced one in my life. I probably did some later designs, but these are just bulletproof the way they were made, and they just keep running. But not these racks. This is absolute opposite, and this is a normal services which we do pretty often. Obviously these ball joints will go bad, so then this is where the outer tie rod, it's very small as you can see, this is already adjusting nut. So it's a very small piece, very small part. These are replaced all the time. Many times the inner tie rod, which you cannot see because the dust boot is protecting it, there will become a play in that ball joint and we will be replacing those. Or as we look today on that entire rack, this will have to be replaced. So what do? You disconnect it from the steering wheel, but first you need to tight the steering wheel in the center position so it will not start rotating while you are working for some reason. Then, so you have to disconnect that, then you will be disconnecting these parts, then you disconnect this from both sides. The rack comes with inner tie rods, so the ones underneath these dust boots that comes in the box, you just buying also, you will automatically replace outer. Despite the fact they are perfect right now, you will not put them back. This will be a bad joke. You just include it in the repair, and obviously after this will be done, and I might film it because he will most likely hire me a little bit later when we will find a time in my schedule. He will most likely hire me to replace that. So I will give him aftermarket options, also the Toyota OEM part. He will be able to choose whatever he wants to do. And this today, for me, it's a clear. We have a huge leak, guys. That was dripping. It was just, you just heard it actually as I speak. There were a few drops. If we will start it up and start moving the tires, it will start gushing out. So this is done. We don't rebuild them. It could be rebuilt, but you need a special tools and so on. The industry at this moment, we just replace that whole rack. I'm assuming this will be not outrageously expensive because it's very basic, simple two-wheel drive from the 90s. Do we see anything else here? Yeah. Obviously I will put in the comments that all these ball joints are ripped. However, I already pried on them, they have no play. So maybe it was just that crazy looping it a lot. Here is also the lower ball joint, everything is here. I don't see anything broken or in bad condition. I think I will look with the light on the shocks, because when I grabbed the whole vehicle standing up there, still it was on the ground, and I grabbed the frame and start rocking it up and down, these shocks were not giving much of resistance. So it will be in my comments that he might think about it. Somebody changed the engine oil. Of course I already cleaned that. This oil filter was wrapped in the oil and it was dripping off it. I don't know why. They did correctly tighten it. It's not loose, but it was all messed up. So that's why you see oil here. This is from oil changes, and it's normal because when you drop that, you spill all over, and I'm probably the last person in this world who takes another 5 minutes and the shop towels to clean it, so I don't give it to the customer back with the oil dripping from the frame. Other than that, you see the clutch, it's a manual transmission. You can imagine how the clutch fluid is black and low. I discovered it up there, and it's still perfectly running and shifting. The Toyotas, they have a really high resistance to the abuse and negligence from the owners. You can see the rear shocks, they are not leaking. Are perfectly dry, and I don't think there's any problem with them. This is fantastic, super simple two-wheel drive workhorse. The owner said they want to keep this truck for a very long time, so I did consider that in my recommendations. Supporting bearing, as you can see, absolutely minimal play. There's no reason to write down any recommendations on maintenance of that. So just a few things on this simple two-wheel drive truck. As you can imagine, typical Toyota quality. There's nothing really wrong with it. Unfortunately, that rack is ghostly. Other than that, everything is super cool on this old truck. I finally made a choice to remove the front wheel to have a good look on the brake pads. They are super thin. I wasn't sure looking with the small mirrors. This one is bigger, but the other one it's like 1 millimeter. So that needs to be recommended, and that gives me a chance to show you that leaked out. You can see how shiny it's leaking on the top. Aha, right there. The shaft on the top, it's actively leaking. You can see the wetness all on that entire body of the shock. So this is active leak. That's why when I grab the vehicle, it's bouncing up and down, and the shock is not really do much of its work. And look here, again, that's a looseness in that bearing, so that needs to be adjusted. And I lowered the truck to show you that power steering reservoir and the pump which is included to it, which is so reliable that I don't think I ever replaced one yet. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's entertaining for you, and stay tuned. I have way more coming your way soon. See you later, my friend.